Hello again and welcome to another Warlord Wednesdays, the episode of the week where we talk about all things bolt action. And today guys, I've got a really exciting video for you. I want to talk about the best beginner tank for each of the major factions. Now this is going to be a continuation of the series of videos that we've done already on this channel where we're talking about beginner bolt action videos. We've covered basic list building, we've covered what's your best faction for you if you're coming over from 40k, and another thing we've talked about, some things you need to be aware of when you're getting into bolt action, be you a new player or a 40k refugee. And so we're going to be diving in a little bit further, getting into a bit more specific detail today, but we're going to be continuing that beginner bolt action series. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is the best beginner tank for each faction. And when I mean beginner tank, I want to lay down some ground rules for what I mean by this. I don't necessarily mean the best tank available to that faction. What I mean is the most beginner friendly tank. And one of the key rules, the sort of key things that I want people to be bearing in mind when it comes to why has he chosen these, is there's two things. Really the availability of the tank. How easy is it to get a hold of that kit? Does it appear in a starter set? Is it a plastic kit, a resin kit, or anything like that? And the other thing that I want to take into account is the fact that a beginner tank doesn't necessarily mean the best tank, but what it could mean is the tank that most embodies that faction and most embodies the traditional play style for that faction. Now, of course, there will be better unit choices out there, but these are the ones that I think are the best beginner ones that it's easy for newer players to get to grips with, and the tanks that really help guide that player in the direction they should be thinking about for their bolt action army. So just keep that in mind. However, if you've got any better suggestions or you've got any cool tanks that you really like, be it in bolt action or in real life, Bob Semple, Crew Rise Up, Tog 2 for life, all that kind of great tanks. So everyone loves it, everyone's got their favourite tank. Put it down in the comment section below. Let me know your favourite tank. Let me know what you think is the best beginner tank. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've put. Just get that comment section popping off, because one of the best things about this community is we have a really active comment section. If you're watching this video for the first time, I highly recommend you read along with the comments, because honestly, you'll find some great nuggets of wisdom in there. But without further ado, let's crack on with today's video. Now, I thought we'd start with the Western Allies, and the first faction that I want to cover is the Armies of the United States. Now, they're such a great faction in bolt action, and I've recently got into the United States myself with my paratroopers, and I have to say I'm absolutely loving it. And this tank choice shouldn't surprise anyone. My favourite beginner tank for the Americans is the Sherman Tank. Now, some people straight away are going to go, Mordian Glory, there are a lot of Sherman tanks out there. Which ones do you mean? I mean your basic bog standard run-of-the-mill M4 Sherman. Medium anti-tank gun, couple of medium machine guns, absolutely just the most straight down the middle Sherman you can think of. Now, I did mention there were all sorts of Shermans, right? One of the great things about the Sherman is there is a Sherman for every occasion. You want an artillery Sherman, you go girl, there's a Calliope. You want a bunker buster, you've got the 105 howitzer. Hell, you want to burn the Japanese out of their bunkers, you've got a Sherman with a flamethrower. There is a Sherman for every occasion. But what I want to focus on today is just the basic Sherman. However, the great thing about the fact that there's loads of different Shermans is that it means that if you buy one Sherman model with a little bit of kit bashing and magnetizing and whatnot, you could easily get pretty much every Sherman make out there. Of course, there'll be some different slight designs, and depends on how fussy your historical group is, but some people, by and large, you shouldn't have any issue with using a regular M4 Sherman model as almost any kind of Sherman out there. I mean, you might need to get a little magnetized rocket pack for a Calliope, for example, but apart from that, you should be pretty safe. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the M4 Sherman is such a fantastic one for a beginner player, because it can pretty much be used for any of the variants out there. And you're very unlikely to find a player that's going to go, no, that hasn't got the exact number of rivets. That means it should be an M3 rather than M4, whatever mark of Sherman is. You guys know what I'm talking about. The point is that the Sherman model, one of the great things for it is just it can be used as almost any Sherman. And so that means it's really accessible and you can use it for anything. At the end of the day, if you say to your opponent, today my Sherman's going to be the flamethrower variant, he's going to be like, yeah, that's fine, because you've only got one, right? It's actually just one Sherman, so easy enough. So there you go. So that's just one point that I wanted to make. The other point that I wanted to make is the Sherman really embodies kind of how you want to be playing your Americans. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video? That's like one of the main reasons why I picked this thing, why I picked the Sherman. Because the Sherman tank has, for all intents and purposes, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill medium tank, but it has a couple of little quirks in it that are really important to take into account. So it's got a medium anti-tank gun. It's got a couple of medium machine guns on it, right? But it has so for all intents and purposes, that's like just medium tank across the board. Yeah, but no. It has a couple of little rules. It has thin sides and it has easily catches fire. Now, you can just pay points to take like a later war version, just get rid of those problem rules, and so you don't have to worry about those things anymore. And that's great. Another great thing about the Sherman is its flexibility. If you're a new player and you don't want to be juggling loads of complex rules, just pay a few points and you don't need to worry about thin sides. You don't need to worry about easily catches fire. You just don't worry about them. But if you're playing with the Sherman and it has those rules, it's really sort of helps guide you on what you should be thinking about when it comes to your American armour. Because American armour it's okay, but it's not the best armour out there. You know, it can go into a tank duel and it'll probably do alright, but the odds are a little bit stacked against it. And so what you want to be thinking about with your American armour is, I can get into tank duels, I can fight other tanks, but really what I'm doing with the Sherman, if I get into a tank duel, is kind of playing a delaying action, kind of playing a bit of a distraction kind of effects, because where I want to be winning on the ground game is with my infantry, because Americans have absolutely fantastic infantry with the BARs and access to all sorts of things like Marines and Airborne and all kind of stuff that you can think about. Americans like to play the infantry game. And so that's what your tank is kind of telling you. That's what the M4 Sherman is kind of telling you. It's like, I can be here, I can fight, and you're going to want me because you don't want to go into a battle without a tank. But bear in mind, like, I'm kind of just holding back the tide here whilst you win with the infantry. And so that's why I like the M4 Sherman, because it kind of guides a newer player down that mentality of, okay, I've got a tank, but where's my main strength as a US player? It's in my really versatile and really flexible and really maneuverable infantry forces. And you'll notice that straight away if you're an American player and you start playing with some tanks and some infantry and whatnot. So that's the first faction I want to cover. That's the US. Now let's take a look at the other Western ally, the Armies of Great Britain. Now the funny thing about the Armies of Great Britain is that I could also say take a Sherman for these guys, because one of the great advantages of being in the Western Allies, and also being Russia as well, is you can take American tanks under Lend-Lease. Now, it would be very easy for me to say take a Sherman and just repeat what I've said before, but actually I don't think that would be right. You see, what I think is the best starter tank, the best beginner tank for the British is the Cromwell. A rather splendid Cromwell, because Cromwell tanks are very similar to Shermans, but they have a couple of different distinctions that, again, help guide the player down how they should be thinking about their faction. So, a Cromwell tank is like a Sherman. It's a medium tank. It's got a medium anti-tank gun. It's got some medium machine guns on it. Overall, it's a nice run-of-the-mill medium tank. The advantage it has is it doesn't have thin sides and it doesn't have easily catches fire. Now, why is that important when you're being a British player? What that tank is telling you about your faction is, we can do anything. We are a jack-of-all-trades faction, and we've got a nice, solid block of armour here. Is it the best tank? No, there are definitely better tanks out there. Is it the worst tank? No, absolutely not. But this is a tank that you can take confidently into any situation, and you'll be confident in almost any armour duel, and overall you'll be absolutely fine. It can bully infantry because it's got better HE, it can bully tanks, it can bully light tanks, it can kind of Barney with some of the German medium tanks. Overall, it is medium all round. It is totally run of the mill. And that is kind of what the British faction is like in bot action. You have access to some fantastic infantry, but often what you'll tend to find is you're going to be running your basic Tommies and your basic tanks, and that's kind of how you're going to be running your basic British army. And your units will be able to do anything well, and they're kind of jack of all trades, master of none. And the Cromwell really sort of shows that. It hasn't got any other disadvantages like the Sherman, but it hasn't got any amazing special rules out there that make it fantastic. It hasn't got Tiger Fear or extra machine guns for Hitler's Buzzsaw or anything like that like German tanks. It's just solid, medium, all round. And that is what you want to be thinking your British army is like. You've got good infantry, not the best infantry. You've got good tanks, not the best tank, but not the worst tanks, not the worst infantry. You can just tailor your force do almost anything, and a Cromwell is kind of like that as well. You can just slap it in your list and not worry about it too much. So that's why I picked the Cromwell. And again, in terms of sort of kit availability, it's got a really fantastic plastic kit as well. Same with the Sherman, it's got a really fantastic plastic kit. So, and often you'll find Cromwells are included in all sorts of bundles and deals and whatnot that that Warlord throws around there. So you can't go wrong with a rather splendid Cromwell for your British force. It's actually difficult to say much more about it. It's so middle of the road, it's so medium all round that you can't have point to any distinguishing features about it there. It's just solid, it's just middle of the road. So that's why I picked the Cromwell as my favourite beginner tank for the Brits. So let's move away now from the Western Allies and let's take a look at the bad guys of World War II, the armies of Germany. Now, this was really difficult because, as many people will know, Germany and Germans in bolt action had access to a lot of different tanks. And one of the main draws for Germans in bolt action is you get some of the best armour in the game. And you get some of the coolest tanks in the game. That's kind of the selling point for the Germans, right? You've got the big tanks, you've got your Tigers, your Tiger 2s, all that kind of stuff, all the wonder weapons, but it was really hard for me to pick what the best beginner tank was because there's so many to choose from. Do you say the Tiger 1 is so iconic, you almost have to tell people to get a Tiger 1, right? But it is kind of tricky to use on the battlefield. Or maybe a Panzer 3 or maybe a Stug. At the end of the day, when I had to really narrow it down and say what is the best beginner tank, what embodies the Germans but isn't difficult to use, I went for a late war Panzer IV. And the models there's multiple models you can pick from. The Germans had all sorts of models for their tanks. But the models that I'm talking about are the late war models that come with the heavy anti-tank gun. Okay? Now, there's a reason that I've picked that Panzer. Okay? And it's because it really, again, it's got a fantastic beginner kit. It's available in the best starter set for Germans, in my opinion, which is the Winter German ones. And it's just a really easy to build model and it's just fantastic, great availability. But it also really embodies the German faction because all the tanks we've looked at so far have been medium tanks with medium anti-tank guns and maybe a couple of other rules around there. The Germans, this tank, the Panzer IV with the heavy anti-tank gun, is the first medium tank that we've looked at which has got a heavier gun than its profile. So normally, you know, medium tank, medium anti-tank gun, light anti-tank gun, heavy anti-tank gun. The Panzer IV is a medium tank with a heavy anti-tank gun. And that's really, really important because what that is saying to you as a German player and what you are saying to your opponents is, I'm here to win the tank duel. I want to win the tank duel. That's why I play Germans. So you can have your Sherman, you can have your Cromwell and their little puny little medium anti-tank guns. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to take advantage of my extra range, of my extra penetration, and I'm going to win the tank war. And that's where the strength in my army is going to be. And so when I was thinking about this, I almost suggested the Panzer III with the medium anti-tank gun. I almost wanted to have like a little theme at the end of the video being like, have you noticed yet? Take a medium anti-tank gun with a medium tank with a medium anti-tank gun. But I realised I had a couple of games where I used my Panzer III. And I took a medium Panzer III with a medium anti-tank gun. And it just felt so wrong, me playing the Germans and not having the best tank on the field. That memory is what made me decide that the Panzer IV with the heavy anti-tank gun is the best beginner tank for a German player. Because it's got what you want in a tank. You want to be able to kill infantry with it. Heavy anti-tank guns, they can do that. They've got the same HE radius as, as like a medium howitzer or whatever, or light howitzer, whatever it is. But they've got the range, they've got the AP, they've got all the stuff that you want. Your German tanks want to be winning tank duels. So that's why I settled on the Panzer IV, because it is really good at that. It's like 230 odd points. It's not going to take out, half your list like a Tiger will, but it will consistently win tank duels. And when you put that tank down on the field and your opponent's looks at his light tank or his Sherman or maybe even just his little howitzer tank, he's going to be thinking, oh, I actually don't want to get into a tank duel today. And so that's why I picked the Panzer IV, because it really is just it's the first proper German tank that you slap down. It's like, yeah, I'm here to play tanks, man. So that's why I picked the Panzer IV for the Germans. Now, moving on from the Germans and their panzers, let's take a look at the armies of Soviet Union. Now, this was a bit of an easier choice. The Soviet Union does have a fantastic range of tanks to choose from. You've got the KV lines, you've got like your T series of tanks, but what we're going to be looking at is the T-34. And I think we can all agree it would have been criminal if I hadn't picked the T-34. It's such an iconic tank for the Russians. And I think that's the first thing I want to say. Like the Sherman tank for the Americans, but unlike the Tiger tank for the Germans, the great thing about the T-34 is that not only is it iconic, but it's also very usable and very accessible. And so that's why, that's one of sort of the main reasons that I picked it for the Soviets. It's got a great plastic kit, it's available in multiple starter sets, and overall it's just really easy to get to grips with. Now, there are a couple of different variants of T-34 that you can pick. You can go for sort of the more earlier war variant with sort of the medium anti-tank gun, or you can go with the more up-gun version, which is the T-34-85. Now, I actually think the T-34-85 is the better beginner tank for your Soviet Union players. And that might surprise a few people, but bear with me. The thing about the T-34-85 is it's very similar. It's almost identical to the Panzer IV, right? It's a medium tank, but it's got a heavy anti-tank gun on it. Now, that is really important because what that tank is telling you as a Soviet player is like, I can match German armour. And that's what you want to be almost doing as Soviets. You want to match the Germans. You want to be going, oh, you got a medium tank with a big gun? I've got a medium tank with a big gun too. So let's throw down German. Let's throw down Fritz. Let's throw down Hun. Okay? Because what the Soviet tank does, what the T-34-85 does, is it goes, right, I'm now matching German armour. So now we're going to have to play the infantry game. And if there's one thing that the Soviets like doing, is they like playing the infantry game. Hell, that's why Warlord gave them a free infantry squad as one of their national focuses. And so that's why I like the T-34-85 as the beginner Soviet tank. It means that you're kind of immediately putting yourself in that advantageous position as a Soviet player where you're forcing your most common enemy, which is going to be the German players, is you're forcing them to play the game on your terms, and it gives you that really sort of strong opener. Let me tell you, as a German player that regularly faces off against Soviets, I find the T-34-85 to be intimidating, and I do not feel confident going into that fight with just a Panzer IV. I often find myself think, one of the reasons that I'm so in love with the Tiger 1 is because it means it doesn't matter who I face, I know I've got the best tank on the field. Because I used to run my Panzer IV into Brits and Americans all the time and be like, yeah, I've got the best tank on the field, I'm going to win the tank duel. But when I started playing Soviets regularly, that feeling went away and it was very uncomfortable. And so that's why I started taking my Tiger 1 all the time, because it was like, yes, got my safety blanket around me, got the best tank on the field. And that is the power of the T-34-85. It makes the German player less confident. It makes the German player have to play the game that the Soviet player wants to do. And so that's just really embodies how the Soviet faction wants to play. You make your opponent play on your terms. So that's why I picked the T-34-85. Now, that is sort of all of the Western Front and Eastern Front stuff done. Let's go on to the other side of the world now, and let's take a look at the Pacific and the armies of Japan. Now, the armies of Japan does not have access to what you would consider traditionally really strong armour. They are certainly an infantry-based faction, and how you're going to be winning most of your games, you're going to be leveraging that fanatical infantry that really allows you to sweep a lot of enemies before you. But you do not want to neglect your armour as a Japanese player, because it certainly helps to have a little pinch of armour on your side when going into any kind of bolt action game. Now, funnily enough, a lot of people can be quite dismissive of Japanese armour in bolt action, but I actually find it to be some of the most points efficient armour you can get in the game. And the reason for that is you're often paying for no special rules whatsoever. No frills, no trills, nothing like that. You're just paying for bog standard basic armor units. And Warlord really takes that into account when you're looking at Japanese armor. And so the tank that I would suggest for the Japanese is the Type 95 Ha-Go. Now, this is probably going to surprise a few people. Some people are going to say, why wouldn't you suggest the Type 97 Chi-Ha? Doesn't this go against one of your sort of most fundamental rules you talked about easily accessible kits. I mean, the Chi-Ha is available in like every Japanese kit, and yeah, that is true. The Chi-Ha is a plastic tank, and it is fantastic, and you can build it with a light howitzer, or you can build it with a medium anti-tank gun, and lo and behold, you've got another sort of medium and inverted commas tank with a medium anti-tank gun. But the Ha-Go, firstly, is one of the most iconic tanks for the Japanese. It is a tiny, by many standards it would be considered an armoured vehicle. In fact, Wikipedia doesn't refer to it as a tank. It refers to it as the most commonly produced armoured vehicle of Japan. Hell, by Bolt Action's own rules, it's only Armour 7 and therefore doesn't count as a tank. It can't tank shock people. But it most certainly is a fantastic Japanese tank unit. And why is that? Because it's so damn cheap. It's so damn efficient. And one of the things that you find with Japanese armour is that it punches well above its weight, because you're basically taking them as machine gun caddies. Now, unlike the other factions that we've talked about, where we've talked about tank dueling and all that kind of stuff, that is something you don't even want to be thinking about as the Japanese, okay? Your tanks are there to bully enemy infantry. The way you deal with enemy armour is with artillery and suicide bombers and suicide anti-tank and all this kind of stuff. That's the way you deal with armour. You think very differently to the other factions. What you want your tanks to be doing is bullying enemy armour. So my favourite two units for the Japanese, the Type 87 armoured car, obviously that's not a tank, but also the Type 95 Ha-Go. It's 90 points and it comes with 2 medium machine guns. One of those medium machine guns is technically on the back. It doesn't matter, you can spin the turret round and it can fire that machine gun forward. It doesn't matter at all. Those 90 points, you can send it up a flank and it can happily just blaze away with those machine guns. Now, it does come with a low velocity anti-tank gun, which is only armour penetration +3. So it really isn't designed for killing anything more than transports and armoured cars. But that's absolutely fine. That anti-tank there is just a little backup weapon. The main weapon on the Ha-Go is those 2 medium machine guns. They're so effective for just bullying enemy infantry. And so, despite the fact it's a resin kit, despite the fact that it's not a medium tank with medium anti-tank or anything like that, despite the fact that it's almost totally the opposite of the way we've been talking about tanks so far, the reason why I like the Type 95 Ha-Go so much, and the reason why I would suggest it for any Japanese starter player, is it tells you exactly what you need to be thinking about when it comes to your armour. Don't be kidding yourself. Don't be out there getting all sorts of Chi-Ha, Kai, Shintos or anything like that. Get rid of those illusions of grandeur. Get rid of those ideas that you're going to be able to match the Allies' armour for armour. You're not, okay? Forget about it. You're not going to be doing that. Don't even try doing that. You want to be looking at the Type 95 Ha-Go. It's going to get you in the right frame of mind for playing your Japanese armour right from the get-go. You are going to want to be bullying infantry with your armour. That's what you want to do. And so that's why I think the Type 95 Ha-Go is so good for the Japanese, because it's so cheap. If it dies, you don't care. If your opponent wastes a single shot on it from his own tank, you've won. You're already ahead. I can't tell you the number of times my little Type 95, my little Ha-Go has just been, sort of brumming around the battlefield, just shooting away his machine guns, just causing such a nuisance that my opponent has started to sling anti-tank rounds at it, and he just misses. Or he hits, but doesn't. He's just unlucky. It doesn't penetrate. It's just such a fantastic unit. And the great thing about it is it's so small. It's so small, so it's really easy to hide and be sneaky and annoying with it. And like I said, that's what you want to be thinking like when you're using your Japanese armour. You want to harass. You want to be bullying. That's what your Japanese armour is all about. And let me tell you, in my gaming group now, my 2 little armoured vehicles, my Japanese, my 87 armoured car, my 95 Ha-Go, went from being laughed at to now feared. My Japanese army is the army I'm most familiar with. My Japanese army is genuinely feared in the local gaming circles because, and a big part of that is, and I quote, the bullshit Japanese armour. And so that's it. Those are my favourite beginner tanks for each of the major factions in Bolt Action. If you've enjoyed today's video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe. And I'm really looking forward to reading the comment section below. I hope lots of people interact and put down their favourite tanks. And I'm really also interested in suggestions other people might have for great beginner tanks for Bolt Action factions. Maybe some of the more minor factions that I haven't covered, for example. If you've really enjoyed today's video and you want to go the extra mile in supporting the Mordian Glory channel, you want to see more Warlord Wednesdays and Bolt Action content, then please check out becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It's thanks to the support of my patrons and my channel members that this channel has been able to go from strength to strength, and that I've been able to just continue doing it. And in fact, we're now on the cusp of going full-time Mordian Glory, which is absolutely fantastic. Never thought I'd see the day. So massive thank you to all of my Patreon supporters and all of my channel members. And I want to take a moment just to give a personal thank you to our top tier Patreon supporters. I want to say a huge thank you to August Varney and John Stubbs for supporting at the Lord General level. You guys are genuinely just, it sounds like I'm exaggerating, it's life-changing the support you guys give me. Huge thank you, I cannot thank you enough. I also want to say a huge, massive thank you to everyone who's subscribed at the Commissar level as well. That's Diesel Fox, Shooter McGavin and Swordfish Thumbs. It's thanks to these guys as well that the Morning Glory channel is just, I've been able to try out new games and just check out loads of different stuff and just really expand and diversify the content. And it's thanks to the generous support of all my Commissars and all of my Lord Generals. So huge thank to you guys. I know I often over-egg this bit of the video, but I just want you to know how much it means to me. And so if I end up over-egging it, I end up over-egging it. But just massive thanks to you guys. Hope you know how much I appreciate you. But we'll leave the video there. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.